From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One ball, corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hutchavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It is Wake Up Warchant. As always, it is presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, Ira, Tom, Charlotte, ACC. Womp womp. Jim Phillips talking about the conference and the future of football, as well as summaries of comments by Mike Norvell, Fabian Lovett, Jamie Robinson, and Jordan Travis. As always, though, we are presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill here on Wake Up Warchant. Nowhere else I'd rather be right now. I like being in this house with you guys, but I'd rather be at the CP. CPTallybar.com. Check out the website. You can place your order online, and why not? It'd be a great thing to do. Thursdays, bingo, everybody. 7 o'clock. Test your bingo skills to win drinks and prizes. Is there a skill to bingo? Isn't bingo just luck? Isn't it all based on the card you get? There's skills involved?
I know when I used to go, when my mom would go when I was a kid, she would go to the, like, one, it was actually, I think it might have been somewhere in South Florida when I was a kid. She would go, and I mean, those people were like legit. Like, they would, these like old women would get like 10 cards, and they had the markers. And, like, they're just, man, it's like a machine. So I think if your skill might be if you played multiple cards. Do they let them play multiple cards?
They do, and there are some cash rounds, too, where you can make a couple $100. So that's where people get real serious. And if you call out bingo and you get it wrong, man, you might not walk out of there that night.
But at the Corner Pocket, you'll be all right. They're friendly folks. Check out cptallybar.com. Joining me on today's program, again, Corey Clark, on the mend from his gallbladder surgery, but pinching in remotely from Tallahassee with some stories, so shout out to him. But managing editor, Ira Schofel, and director of original content, as well as executive producer of the Jeff Cameron Show. Jeff Cameron Show today, 1 to 3 o'clock.
It will be on. I probably won't be on it, but yeah, it'll be on today.
We'll be traveling back from Charlotte.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll check out Miami and let you know what they have to say about their upcoming season in the Noles. We're going to talk a lot about Florida State. We spoke to Mike Norvell and 3 players in like 4 different venues within like 90 minutes. It was amazing. It was incredible. All that content up on warchant.com and Warchant TV. Like, subscribe, 5-star rating and review, and download the app. Everybody, download the app. Let's get to it then, Ira. Everybody likes talking about conference realignment. We're not going to have any sort of details or particulars on that, but obviously just the entire landscape of college football, whether that's the Big Ten growing to 16 teams, the SEC growing to 16 teams, Florida State, ACC seeing the revenue gap increase. People wanted answers, want to see what Jim Phillips was going to say. Unenviable position, him having to get up in front of all of us and try to give us answers to something that he can't talk about explicitly. Again, I thought it was like a populist sort of message, like if you want to make it like a political kind of metaphor where, we're our rent's too darn high and everyone's, let's all rally for each other because he's talking about how beautiful college sports is and it's more than just football and more just basketball and we can't just worry about the select few. It needs to be everybody. Which, again, like a really sort of wholesome message that is not rooted in reality at all, though, right?
It just seems so out of touch. And that's what I think, again, I don't know if he read that. Like, did anybody read that before he went up there? Because it was a speech. I mean, and he answered, he doubled down when he answered questions during the Q&A, but that was a part of his speech. He actually repeated a couple of those lines for emphasis. So, like, this was prepared. This was the analogy he was going to make was that, there's only going to be this. It's not good for college sports if there's only 2 gated communities, meaning the SEC and the Big Ten, when there's the rest of the community. And it's bad for college athletics if everybody's not successful. We need everybody to have opportunities and to be healthy and not just basketball and football. And it was like all these things that, man, they might have sounded okay in theory, but are you not seeing what's happening? And do you not see the frustration? Is he not hearing the frustration from these campuses, from these coaches and athletic directors who do want to compete with the SEC? Like, it's almost like he was asking them to, like, be okay with being in a bubble that's totally not related to what's happening in big-time college athletics. It just seems so tone deaf, so detached, so unrealistic, so Pollyannish. I can't believe that was the approach he took. And I like Jim Phillips. I've talked him up. A lot of people in the industry talk highly of him. But I think that was just a terrible misstep.
I will continue to do what's in the best interest of the ACC, Tom, he said, but will also strongly advocate for college athletics to be a healthy neighborhood, not a 2 or 3 gated community. what does that mean? Everybody wants to be in a gated community. They're like, we can all be happy having our humble home and everything, but like we all strive. And it's not just striving. It's when the people you're competing against are in those quote unquote neighborhoods. They're making millions and millions of dollars more than you. I mean, what could he have tried to, accomplish with that metaphor?
No, I mean, he's also on the NCAA Transformation Committee, and that sounds like a statement that's more suited for the Transformation Committee than it is for the ACC. I mean, what does it matter what's good for college athletics when your primary mandate as the commissioner of the ACC is the health of the ACC and its member institutions? I think, as it was happening live, I really didn't think he hit too many bad notes. 98% of what he said, maybe 95, was, I thought, fine, given that he doesn't have a hand to play. He doesn't have much that he can do. But if your goal was two things, you should have had two primary goals. Number one, don't give any one-liners that is going to paint you as weak. Failed. I mean, that's failed miserably. The neighborhood thing just did not work. And then number two, you have to settle down the power brokers in your conference. Make them feel better about the situation they're in because of the situation that's coming on the horizon. And he didn't do either of those things. So if I'm a university that wanted out of the ACC, I want out more after what he said today. You should at least be neutral or find a way for them to say, all right, let's see what Jim's got. Let's see what he's got for us. But I would think that his statements today made the universities and institutions that want out even more adamant that they need to get out than they did before he took to the dais.
And, the thing, I think one of the things that I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, like you guys were saying, that, there's no good answers for the ACC. The problem for the ACC is it's a bunch of smaller schools and private schools that don't have huge alumni bases, don't command great television ratings, so they get paid less. That's all it is. It's not a conspiracy by ESPN and Fox to help those other two conferences more. If you had the bigger alumni bases and the bigger television ratings, ACC, you would get that money too. So it's not his fault. He's only been on the job just over a year, but he could have left it at the 2 points I thought he made, and I think, Tom, when we were talking off the air, you brought this up. Two of the points he made that people could have lived with was he kept saying everything's on the table to any question. And in the two areas where that resonates with people is revenue sharing, that the idea that he was asked, are you open to the idea that maybe every school in the conference doesn't get the same amount of revenue every year, that you do base it on performance and based on stature or whatever, a brand or whatever the wording somebody used was when they asked him. And he said, that's on the table. And then when he was asked about expansion, he said, that's on the table. Everything's on the table. That might have been enough.
Yep.
Like that we understand the revenue gap. We are aware of it. He did say that a couple of times. We're very aware of it. It's our number one priority, whether we have to look at expansion, whether we have to look at revenue sharing, whether everything is on the table. And I think that would have come off as stronger. But all that other stuff just, man, it made him look terrible. And I don't know, man. I don't know how he wins over the confidence of some of these athletic directors and presidents who are starting to panic already.
The statement that I'm okay with living in a different neighborhood.
Yes.
That in and of itself. If I'm Alford, if I'm Radakovich down in Miami, who had Clemson ties, obviously he worked there forever. If I'm a power broker athletic director and I hear I'm okay with living in a different neighborhood, go down the roster of ACC teams and say, who would say something like that in the conference? Duke would, Syracuse would, Boston College would, Wake would.
Wake Forest would, yeah.
Clemson wouldn't, Florida State wouldn't, North Carolina wouldn't, Miami wouldn't. And that's the thing
Virginia Tech wouldn't. I don't think Virginia. I don't even think Virginia would.
Right.
Louisville would. And, yeah, I mean, that's and then the other thing was when he talked about there was another comment along those lines he made. I'll come back to me. It'll come to me in a second.
Well, he said something desperate when it was with ESPN. They're 50-50 partners with us, so there's urgency on their part too, which is okay. So that's basically saying, yeah, we're failing miserably, and they don't want to fail miserably either. It's just there was a lot of posturing that I think he thought he was getting over, and it was doing the exact opposite of what his intent was.
I think there's a lot of good stuff in it, and it's crazy. Like you were talking about, like over dinner, Tom was saying about his speech, his comments, like 98% of it great. The 2% of it though, like so bad, so unredeemable that like it just kind of ruined the entire thing. But he says, let me repeat that. Fundamentally, we are responsible for the greater good of the enterprise. Let me repeat that. We are all responsible for the greater good of the enterprise.
And he was talking about college athletics as a whole.
Yep.
Yeah. And then he talks about we are not the professional ranks. This is not NFL or NBA light. We all remain competitive with one another, but this is not and should not be a winner-take-all or zero-sum structure. Is that opening the door for maybe like a revenue sort of thing or a tier 2 thing where it's like, all right, it won't be zero-sum to where Wake Forest and Syracuse are waylaid and then everybody else can move on, but maybe there's something in the horizon where these teams that want to be part of this neighborhood, that don't want, maybe the 3,000 square foot house because they don't want to do all the cleaning, big houses, too much cleaning, it takes forever. That they would be happy that maybe this is him kind of laying crumbs out there for anything.
No, I mean, I think that's the concern from especially fans and donors who are concerned that FSU and Clemson, that these schools can't either get out of the grant of rights, can't get out of this conference, that's what they're going to be relegated to. That the leadership is okay with it being like a tier 2 kind of guy. And that's not what – I mean, if you're at these schools – because here's the problem. That revenue gap, as it continues, and I mean, it's not just facilities. We talk about facilities a lot. It's coaches' salaries. I mean, you're not going to be able to ever have a good coach if you get one – 2 minutes later, an SEC school or Big Ten school that's got 5 times the money you have can just hire them away. And any of them. It's not,
Or her. Then they try to come after Lonnie.
Oh, 100%. Every sport. So that to me, it's almost like it's a bizarre reality to even think that it's an option for these schools to think like that. I mean, it would be – again, it was almost like he was talking about like, oh, we need to put the genie back in the bottle. Well, man, the genie's been out for decades.
Yeah, you've got the SEC and the Big Ten that are trying to win, and he's trying to be a steward for what used to be college sports. Yeah. The very different mandates, it would seem, and this is his own forum. It's not. He said one thing, he was asked a question, and he slipped. These are the remarks, like you're saying. He prepared. Yeah. He prepared these remarks. At the end of the day. The more I think about it, because we're, what now, 12 hours removed from his remarks, he sounded more like a steward for the NCAA and college sports than he did for the interests of the entirety of the ACC. And that's damning, man. That's not what you set out to do when you woke up this morning. I guarantee it.
Yo, you hear that? That's the sound of the hottest new club, the Zaxby's Signature Club Sandwich. It's everything you love about our original sandwich, but, clubbier. Hand-breaded chicken, bacon, and cheese, and your choice of Zax sauce or spicy Zax sauce. Try one today with fries and a drink. Only at Zaxby's. Can we turn it down now?
And don't forget to listen in for the Zaxby's indescribably good Player of the Week every Monday on Wake Up Warchant.
To your point a little bit, and you mentioned this when we were talking about it over at dinner too, though, Tom, is the fact that he said all metrics, when he was asked about revenue gaps, all metrics, we, the ACC, are one of the leaders in the country in all of those areas I talked about.
Except
the revenue piece of it.
Oh, okay.
Like, what? What are we trying to accomplish by saying, like...
My house is awesome. It's got everything you'd want except a roof that doesn't leak. I mean, yeah, that's a big except. When he said it, because he waited to do the accept thing, and I was like, is he lost his mind? Yeah. No, you're not. You're not. The one thing everybody cares about is revenue, because that's the key to everything else. It's so weird because, I think the theory behind college athletics and big-time college athletics in this generation, the last 20 years, when the money got so big, is football wins, football eats first, and then everybody else can eat too. If you're successful in both football and in men's basketball to a degree, that paves the way for everybody else. It was almost like he was trying to flip it, like it's more important that everybody has this great college experience. It's like, dude, first of all, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's not an almost. He absolutely was doing that.
Right.
I think he was consciously saying that, and that's where, look, man, I get it. I get what he's trying to drive home, and there's a part of me that agrees that that's what ought to be. But sit in any business meeting in any category. You could be an air conditioning service, a radio station, or whatever. Yeah. And if you say we've got great people, we produce a great product, the community loves us, but we are hemorrhaging $20,000 a month on the P&L report. That's the one bad thing. What business owner or CEO is going to say, oh, you know what, though? You had me. 3 out of 4 is good. We can hemorrhage $20,000 a month. It's no big deal. No problem at all. Like, in what world is that reasonable? I get what ought to be, but here's what is, dude, and he didn't seem in touch with that.
I don't know. I just And at the end of the day, none of that may matter because the grant of rights is still there. And so, we certainly believe that FSU and other schools are still trying to figure out how they could either get out of it or things could be changed, or maybe the fact that he did say everything's on the table. Maybe the ACC is closing in on some sort of expansion that will bring more money. And maybe they are, he said he talks to ESPN every single day about, increasing the revenue. And maybe they are talking about uneven revenue sharing. And I don't think that works long term, but maybe that's enough to keep the schools that are furious, keeps them at bay. That's the best case scenario. But I think the problem is, I just think that any faith or confidence some of these administrators would have in him hearing that, because they're going to be hearing it from their people. The donors that write the big checks have a line of communication to the president, to the boosters president, to all the AD, and they all heard that also. Yep. And now they're saying, wait a minute, what do you guys have us in? And how can we get out?
Well, again, just to this sort of, unenviable position he finds himself in. If we're shareholders and he's a CEO and he's telling us one thing, but then he goes on CNBC and says something completely is it possible that he's telling ADs, chancellors, presidents about listen, we are talking to ESPN every day, we are looking to expand, or we are trying to pinch as much as we can from Notre Dame to get them involved, and then try to create some sort of narrative at ACC Media Day about, or kickoff about, we want to save the spirit of the sport. Or does it change everything? No matter what you've heard behind closed doors, what he says in front of everybody at Charlotte, that is now the new truth.
Yeah, I think there's weight to it. If use a football analogy, if you're a head coach and you lose a close game, and in the post-game locker room you say, guys, you did everything that you possibly could. This is on us, the coaches. It's a play here or there. We'll clean it up. Then on Monday press conference, say it's about execution. Right? We got to execute better as players. We're putting them in a position to succeed. Is that locker room going to believe in you anymore? Because you just dogged them after in the postgame. It just a different message has people running. And there was one moment of weakness I laughed about. It was unintentional. It was when he made the remark, we talk to ESPN every single day, almost every day. And I'm like, oh, man, yeah, because they don't want to take your calls every day, man. You know whose calls they're taking? Yeah, they're taking Sankey's calls. Yeah. That's who the calls they're taking every day.
What about the slip-up of 17 when he says something about 17 teams? Folks, there's 14 of us. If you count Notre Dame, it's 15. 17. How do you get 14 or 15 and 17 conflated? Was there a Freudian slip?
He said he was. He said you got me expansion on my mind when you asked me the question. It's certainly a something to wonder, man. and he did. He did it. The one moment where he really expressed confidence was the Notre Dame question. Yeah. And, he was asked, how confident are you, or I forgot the phrasing, but if Notre Dame joins a conference, how much are you working on that? And he said, we definitely we've let them know we want to be here. And, right now they believe in their independence, and we're backing that. We respect that. But we're confident that if they join a league, that it's going to be the ACC. And he kind of had this twinkle in his eye or something when he said it. I don't know.
It was smug, man.
The quote, part of the quote was, I know that if there comes a time that Notre Dame would consider moving to a conference and away from independence, I feel really good about it being the ACC.
And in print, that doesn't convey the strength he was trying to convey with it. It's almost like they just got word from their attorneys, Notre Dame can't get out of this or something. It was, I don't know, man. It's a very tough situation, and he didn't create it. It was created through the makeup of the conference, some of the decisions they made, John Swofford making some decisions toward the end of his tenure. There's a lot of factors at play here, but it is what it is, and you can't get up there and present that and then to even open the door that you're open to. Oh, I remember what I was going to say now from earlier, the Northern Illinois crap.
Oh, yeah.
What? Yeah. And he gets into this thing about how letting everybody know how much he enjoyed his time at Northern Illinois. When I left Notre Dame to go to Northern Illinois, nobody could believe it. And you're leaving. And then he's like, but I loved that time at Northern Illinois. And everybody's like, yo, we don't want to be Northern Illinois.
So we're the Northern Illinois of the former Power Five. That's great. Yeah.
Oh.
Is there any silver lining from the at least everything is on the table? That's a pretty strong statement, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Again, I don't know that uneven revenue sharing works long term because, again, I just don't know how you quantify, especially for a school like Florida State that basically turn this conference into a football conference to whatever degree it is, or, from the 90s to 2000s and into the mid-2000 teens. And then now they're on hard times. How do they get a fair share? Clemson obviously has had the most success lately, but, what do you do with teams that do win? Like Wake Forest won 10 games last year. Do you just say, tough, we don't care what you do on the field, we're not giving you a big cut? And then if a Notre Dame came in, did they get so much better? I just don't know how that ever gets any kind of – the whole reason they do it the way they do it is it kind of keeps everything calm. And I just don't know how – but maybe in the short term, because we're talking about the grant of rights goes 14 more years. Everybody feels like even the most –
you want to talk about smug? The reporter that asked him about, hey, listen, the SEC was able to get Texas and Oklahoma because it was only 2 years. Same thing with Southern Cal and UCLA. You got 14 more years.
Well, because somebody asked Jim, and he got the media came at him with some good questions.
He got the business.
Somebody asked him, how strong do you feel about the grant of rights? How strong do you feel? How much do you believe that this conference is really going to stay together? Yeah. And he said, well, I look at these other deals, Texas and Oklahoma. They're staying until their grant of rights is over, and it looks like UCLA and USC are going to stay till theirs. And then that's when the guy said, "Well, those are 1 or 2 years. Yours is 14 years."
He dropped a due respect, Commissioner, to start the question. I was like, "Ooh, wait, okay, what do we got here?" That's when you perk up.
Yeah, this wasn't like the old days with Swafford getting the softballs. This was a pretty tense conversation.
Last thing on this, and we'll transition to Florida State stuff. We did a wrap up. It's up on the website, and Ira kind of joked like, "Where are we going to film it?" I'm like, "Oh, we'll do it right out in front of the right in the foyer, the main lobby area." And he's like, "Well, do we really want to be out in front of everybody talking bad about the ACC and everybody's around us?" So we go outside, and I wasn't sweating because I was wearing seersucker, everybody. But you feel passionate about this, Ira, and you're very level-headed. Not that you're not being level-headed here, but do we, Tom as well, want you to chime in on this? Does this maybe, I don't want to say accelerate? This is going to be talked about for a while. I know we're very prisoner of the moment, and who knows, some other shoe can drop news-wise, but does it feel like maybe, I don't know, like in a year we'll look back and think this might have been a pivotal moment? Does it feel like at least this is going to have to accelerate talks between, like you said, big money boosters and their ADs and things like that, do we think?
Well, I am curious, the point you guys made earlier about maybe there's one message behind closed doors to the ADs and presidents and then a different message publicly, and maybe that is the case. But then for that to be the case and the presidents and ADs to trust him or to be okay with that, they really have to trust him. They have to trust him implicitly that what he's telling us is the straight blank and what he's telling the media is something else. But I don't know if that trust is there. You're talking about 14 different schools, 15 different schools with different – and a lot of people have come and gone. FSU's leadership is all pretty new. Everybody's been there like a year. He's only been here like a year. There's not like a lot of long-term ties. So I don't know that, whether or not they believe in him. But if they don't, if any of them don't, I think they're on the phone. They were on the phone today. Like if they don't trust him implicitly, I think they were on the call today saying, "What the heck are you doing? I do not have confidence in you." I could see, if this was a business, I could see a vote of no confidence from the shareholders because, your job is to provide every opportunity for us to have as much success as possible. And that talk about we be okay in a not a gated community and let them just ruin the sport over in there, that is not doing what your job is supposed to be. And so I can't even now maybe they all behind the scenes, maybe they're all implicitly trust him and they know, but I have a feeling, he got a lot of phone calls today asking, are you really the guy that needs to be leading this conference at this time?
I would just take us back to the car ride we were in recording the pod yesterday, which is we were thinking on and off of the recording that this is going to be the boring part of the day. There's nothing he can say. It's going to be a big nothing burger, a filibuster. It's going to be it won't be a story. It was the story for the day. There's a reason we're leading with it tonight.
ESPN, like the 6 o'clock Sports Center, had that A block, and SEC was like towards the end. Yeah.
It's not just a Florida State specific grudge match kind of a story. It's 6 o'clock Sports Center, national media. Thamel's right there in the A block, and the SEC was relegated to the second or third segment of Sports Center. So it's not just us. He found a way to make it a story, and that's where you get into a real problem.
It would be like the Yankees got the big payroll, and the Red Sox saying, we don't really think that that's the best way to have a sport. We're just gonna invest $40 million, and what would Red Sox fans say?
We're going to do good for the community.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that. We think that's obscene. We're not going to do that. It's like, no, man. Every school, not every school. There are a few schools in this conference who probably would be fine in that kind of model. But all the ones that make you money, they want that. What you just crapped on, that's what they want.
Maybe it was a pivot so he can be the commissioner of the future ACC after this is all done. He's placating to the future members.
All right, let's talk now about Florida State. Again, Mike Norvell, and then the 3-player representatives were Fabian Lovett, Jamie Robinson, and Jordan Travis. Start off with you, Tom. Just Jordan, first off, nice black suit, a little cross diamond earring dangling from him. I felt like 80s, 90s. I liked it. Man, he seemed really at ease. I know you were hanging kind of posted up in the breakout room, they call it. So, folks, they start off their day in a big old ballroom. They go to a podium. All the national writers are there, and they get 5-10 minute window of questions. Then they go into a separate room where each of those players and Norvell are at a separate table, and they're there for like 45 minutes or so, which we have interviews of all those guys, a complete raw, every single word they said. That'll be up on our YouTube page, so check it out. But I just remember I wasn't able to really listen in to Jordan. I was kind of hopping around. I mean, there was a genuine ease, like a cool, like a confidence with him. I mean, not that, I'm gonna be a Heisman, we're gonna win a national title, but just something different, especially compared to last year when we saw him here with Mackenzie Milton.
Yeah, one of the questions I asked him was, when's the last time you felt this confident? And he said high school. I haven't felt this confident since I was in high school when I could make all the throws. I knew I could make all the throws. He said he feels healthy enough. He could throw 1,000 footballs a day if he needed to. Full credit to the training staff. He talked about his leadership style and how he's not a cuss you out kind of guy or a rah-rah leader, but if he needs to say something, he'll pull you aside. He talked about how this is his group now, but none of that matters if he doesn't perform when the season starts and he's got to go get wins and earn wins. He seemed very sure of who he is, what his style is, and that this team is his own. And when you juxtapose that to last year, because he was in the exact same seat, in the exact same room from last year, he was in awe of Mackenzie at times, and then half looking over there as he was answering his questions. Not all day, but certainly for a portion of the day. This year, you're correct. What you read when you were bouncing back and forth, Aslan, he knows who he is. He knows what they have to do, and I think he's just ready to go and execute it. And he feels the most important thing he said was, I feel as confident as I have since I was in high school.
Yeah, there's no cockiness and all. I feel a lot of his sort of confidence, to us at least last year, felt a little bit manufactured. Like, I'm trying to put the brave face on. There's times where he's vulnerable and admitted to us, like, hearing his name not be cheered, like the Jacksonville State game kind of hurt him. But it just felt like a very authentic sort of, I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm confident in who I am. Folks, again, we were there at the podium. They went to a breakout room. The crazy thing was, that was about an hour's worth of us talking to them, and then they went into another room where it was just local media assembled. It was us. It was, the other competing websites. And then Ira was able to kind of get away and speak to him for a little bit. I was like, hey, man, let me get to Jordan. I wasn't able to speak to him a lot in the breakout room. What did you take away from the good 5-10 minutes of you kind of one-on-one with him, really? Yeah,
similar stuff. In the main room, I floated over to him briefly because I was mostly with Jamie Robinson and Fabian Lovett when we were in the breakouts at first. Just the body language, I didn't hear a lot of his comments, but just the way he was sitting in the seat, he was kind of sitting in the seat the way Mackenzie sat in the seat last year. Because Mackenzie carried himself like a 25-year-old, he was like a polished vet. That's the way he carried himself. And Jordan did not look that comfortable last year. And then here we go now a year later. It's almost exactly a year later, and Jordan is the guy now. And he doesn't have to, it doesn't have to put on, doesn't have to like entertain or try to make people believe he's something he's not. There's just a self-assuredness, but a relaxed confidence. And when I was talking to him, a little bit separately later, I think the thing that kind of hit me, I guess, as we were talking to him, is that the chip on the shoulder is still in there too. It's not like he knows. Mackenzie probably had an overconfidence because of what he had done at UCF. And I think Mackenzie thought he was going to kind of do the same thing here. And so he was confident in a probably unrealistic way. Jordan's confident, but I also think he's got a chip on his shoulder. And I think that's a good combination. And, I didn't ask it well, but I was trying to ask, like, will you still have that edge kind of if you guys start having success? There's a chance this team has more success. And he kind of like laughed. He was like, "Oh yeah, that's never going away." Like, he knows how many people have doubted him. He's the kind of guy I think it was negative for him for a long time because I think it chipped away at his confidence.
Absolutely, yeah.
And at some point now, I think he's turned it into a positive because I think he's got a ledger of all the things people have been saying about him.
As the kids say,
he
right?
does. I think he does. And so that, if he really is improved and if he is playing that confidence, that's a good thing to have.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Is part of that confidence too when he was asked about if this would be his last year? I mean, maybe he's got that kind of aspiration, Tom, to move on to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that all three of these guys had in common today is it's a critical year for them. They're not all, in fact, are any of them, maybe Fabian.
Official seniors, because of COVID, I think they're all redshirt juniors.
Yeah, whatever the case is, they all have said in so many words that they're looking to make this the year that counts. But the thing that's cool with Jordan is there is a vulnerability to him as well. I don't know, if that would have worked 20 or 30 years ago, but he talks about how the criticisms that he couldn't make throws over the field or move the chains. I don't know. I've never heard anybody say that before. But he says, I started to believe that, and I let that creep into my psyche, and I believe that a little bit. I don't anymore. I don't know why I let that get inside my head, but I don't feel that way anymore. That's really good stuff. We often ask athletes to be honest about what it is they're feeling.
Well, because we saw James Blackman and Alex Hornibrook in front of you, and we're like, if these guys are playing in front of this other guy, how good could he be? So, but we love you now, Jordan.
Yeah, and he basically got run off at Louisville. That was the feeling, the impression from the outside. And again, the guy has just gotten every raw break, and I wish FSU fans did like him more because I still think there are a lot of people who are not bought in, and there's a lot of FSU fans who, what your first impressions are, it's hard to shake those. And so there's an impression of him that he can't throw, that he can't read defenses. There's all these, and I think some of it's a lot of misconceptions, but there's a big group of the fan base who doesn't respect him, doesn't believe in him, that he's going to stay healthy, that he's going to make the throws he needs to make. And so the only way to kind of get over that is to just do it. But it's hard, man. It's hard. If again, thinking about his career, he goes to Louisville, and from everything we've heard, it was the end of Petrino's run, and it was just a completely toxic. And this is from people that cover Louisville and around that part. It was an awful, disgusting, terrible situation that he went to as a freshman. Comes to Florida State, comes in the middle of the Willie Taggart stuff. Then that guy gets fired, and he never gives him a chance. Odell comes in, gives him a chance, but then they go back. I mean, it's just been one thing. He's just been a yo-yo. And then, last year they go and get Mackenzie Milton, and I think it might have helped him in some ways, but it definitely set him back in terms of confidence. And so now here we are, and it's like, and that was kind of the point Norvell was making about the team, but I think it really also applies to him, is because of all the crap they've been through, he does think it's somehow galvanizing them and making them stronger. And I think that, is certainly the hope for Jordan Travis, that all has made him a tougher, stronger kid than he was 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
I don't want to use the word confidence too much because I feel like we probably go to any previous ACC kickoff and we're like, they're confident about what they're going to be. But, Jamie Robinson seems very confident in what this defense can be. And talking about bringing back DBU, I mean, they know they got Duquesne, but they're really focused on LSU to a certain degree too. Well, what about Mike Norvell? I mean, I think, again, like we spoke to him 3 different sort of rooms out there on Wednesday. He really seems to believe. I mean, he says, success is coming, I mean, it seems like imminently he thinks. I think he said some sort of comment maybe about the fact, like, look, we're going to be better than people think. I don't know if he said anything. Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe I'm projecting. But, I mean, what was your big sort of takeaway from the way he kind of presented? That maybe not carried himself, but the words he was saying, Ira, in terms of what he feels this team can maybe be this season. Yeah,
I always try 100%. That's what he was. He was very positive and very confident or whatever it is. But it also, I do need to check myself and remember that that's who Mike Norvell is. He is uber optimistic. He believes in every kid. He's always, he's one of those guys that I think he believes the power of positive thinking and that, I've got to always talk these guys up. And think of all the adjectives he uses to describe practices. It was superb. It was, whatever. I mean, he comes up with all these flowery words to describe players and or the team in different situations. So that, kind of need to check ourselves a little bit. But I do think the things he was pointing to were more tangible. And in some ways he was kind of pointing to the problems last year and in the past to explain why it will be better. So I think in the past it was always like, oh, Lawrence Toafili is a spectacular running back. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But now it was like he was pointing to specifics of, like speaking about the offensive line. And last year we didn't I forgot how exactly he phrased it, but we barely had enough guys to go in. Now we have guys that can win games. I mean, that's a pretty strong comment.
Yeah, it's like, it's like I think we're at the point now where we don't have just 8 guys. We're probably 10 and 11 guys that we can not just put into a game, but we can win with them.
He specifically pointed that out. Like that, these are guys that can help us win football games. In other words, those guys last year that I was calling all those great things, they couldn't help us win games. So there was more of that. Tatum Bethune, the way he talked about him, the way he talked about the secondary and how it came together last year, and as you listen to it, it's like, okay, as you're listening to him talk, you're like, okay.
Yeah, there was a calm in his eyes this time around. Now, the context clue here, maybe the limiter, was the final media availability we had. He was literally sitting down and shooting from the hip with the local media. And so
Loved it. We need to do that more often.
It's like a fireside chat.
It was. It very much was. So maybe that fostered more of a calm in the way he delivered things, because when he's at the podium.
That was my favorite. That's probably my favorite interview we've had with Norvell.
And go ahead.
No, I was going to say easily mine as well. But
It's funny because I was just telling you guys, I was talking to somebody from another outlet who interviewed him this week and said they talked to him for 15, 20 minutes and just did not feel like they got a whole lot tangible. And in some of I watched back because I wasn't in the main breakout room, but I watched some of that video, and there were a lot of questions he didn't give great answers to. But then when we were in there with him, I think we have built a rapport, not just us, the local media, who have built a rapport with him, and I think he does feel more comfortable with us. But yeah, I don't think it was just because he was sitting down, but I think it was because it might have been, but I do think it was just I just think he's in a better place, and he really seems to, again, we'll see, man. You got to win games, but it seems like there's a lot of talking about the way the players are coaching each other and workouts and all that. I mean, there's some different things that they're talking about.
There's fewer things he's worrying about, like that. He said, I'm really proud of our older players for taking the newcomers under their wing, meaning, again, by omission, right? He used to have to force them to do that. That's what that sounds like, but now he may have cut out some of the guys that he didn't think were fits for the culture of the program, and so therefore it's more player-led rather than coach-mandated and micromanaged. Just, I think in past years or press conferences to start spring or fall, it felt like maybe a pitch. Who are you trying to convince, man? Who are you trying to convince that things are better? Is it you convincing yourself, or in this there was just kind of, he wasn't pitching it. He was saying this is how it is. So I don't know. Maybe that's the way Mike Norvell is going to operate with a more successful program that doesn't have to worry about. But it did feel a little bit different today. We'll see if that was in 3 months. If they start horribly, then we'll say, well, must have been that chair was really comfortable. And sitting down makes him a little bit more calm.
But you just think back to some of the moments, like in year 1 and year 2, and I've heard some people on the coaching staff have made comments about like that their first year here, their first year at Florida State. They get that Georgia Tech game. They have the COVID. They have the shutdown. They are away from the team for months. They get in that Georgia Tech game, and they had no idea who these kids were, how they were going to respond to anything.
They had the lightning delay in that game too, which they were furious about because that was a good start that they were off to.
And then I think back to the game, was it up at NC State when they got drilled, and seeing him on the side, or up at Louisville. And when Louisville game, when he's on the sideline and the camera kind of caught him for a while, that was Tom's giving us the look. He's got the arms folded,
staring up at the sky.
There's a kid walking by in the background rapping, like just singing a song, as they're getting drubbed. And Norvell's sitting there like with his arms crossed, and you could tell in his mind that I would have loved the thought bubble of like, what the F? I mean, this is like this is the worst experience of my life. I hate these kids, But he would never say that to us. But that's where he was, a year and a half ago. That's not the same guy we just talked to.
What was your favorite part about some of the comments from him, at least in the local media gathering? I mean, he said Tatum Bethune special. I mean, I think he talked about Robert Scott's body composition changing. I mean, anything kind of catch your ear, made you a favorite moment, I guess, maybe, Tom?
It was back with the offensive line because it also he did the same thing he did in the proper breakout room that he did with the local media, which is he started laughing. He started laughing when I forget who asked him in the breakout room, but he couldn't even get I think it was one of our colleagues in Tallahassee asked about how do you feel about the offensive line room? He couldn't even get the question done before Mike started like laughing, like giddy and excited and relieved. He's like, oh man, you could just see it. And then again, when we got with him just locally on the first floor of the Westin, he did the same thing where he's just, you could see the relief on his face. There is genuine relief.
He said something like, we fixed that, or we addressed that, or something like he.
Right, yeah. The question was, he couldn't even field 2 offensive line groups in practice. Like, oh, we fixed that. Cut him off. Like, it's just, he can't wait to talk about that segment group. And you can see his mind working with, we're now able to do this. There are things that I wanted to do, that I've always wanted to do, that I feel like we can do now. And that's a genuine belief on his part. I don't think that's a pitch at all. It's just, you could see it in his eyes. So it was specifically the offensive line. He mentioned other guys and some standouts and things that are going on. But when you double down in 2 different settings and have come to the same conclusion with excitement about an offensive line, a group that has been lamented here in this market for how many years, this might be one of the deeper offensive line groups they've had since even the championship season in 13, because that group only had 6.
They didn't have depth.
They had 6 dudes. They were remarkably lucky with health. Yeah.
And he really didn't single out. They brought in 4 transfers who all have played a lot of college football, and he didn't really talk about them. He really hyped up Robert Scott, Maurice Smith,
Dylan Gibbons,
Darius Washington.
He was a transfer, but he did talk good about Dylan Gibbons.
But he didn't. But not the guys who just came in this year.
Yeah.
It's how much growth they've made physically. The fact that they've transformed their bodies. I think Caden Lyles has lost some weight. Maurice Smith and Robert Scott and Darius probably have put on some weight. And there's a lot of excitement about that group. The thing that stood out to me, and Jamie Robinson is one of those guys, man. Like he's the kind of guy that if he goes plays pickup and gets beat, he's still talking to the other team. Like that guy, there's nothing that could happen. Like he basically today. He was getting asked questions from Clemson writers. So you went up against Clemson when you were at South Carolina, and now you do at Florida State, and talking about the rivalry. And I mean, he just will not give anybody any respect. He will not give Clemson any respect. He's not giving LSU any respect. I mean, he's not like dogging them, but you could tell he is not going to say, "Oh yeah, they are the whatever, and we're different from them." It doesn't matter how many times they could beat him. He's going to believe that. And but he was talking about. I asked him about some of the transfers that came in, and he's like, man, he goes, Coach Norvell went out and got some dogs. I mean, he just he loves the guys that they brought in. And I think, some of it's on the defensive side, but he loves the receivers they brought in, Micah Pittman and Winston Wright, who, we'll see when he's available. But they're it's cool to see the players excited about the other players that they've got around them, because that probably hasn't been the case in a while.
Yeah, Fabian Levitt said, it was asked about Jared Verse, called Jared Verse a dog, I think, in the main ballroom. Good dog, though. Good, good boy. Not a good boy, but you know what I'm talking about. Everybody. Dog in the positive adjective.
And Jamie told us that, poodles can't hang with the pits. So he was like, he knows that he was talking about somebody that they're a real dog. And you can't be a poodle hanging around with the pids.
On Winston Wright real quick, though, and you were there for it in the main.
I should have said, well, why not? What happens to a poodle?
He broke down with a swear at one point to break out. Yeah, I think that would have been the number 2 there. He would have described, but yeah, sorry.
No, so he did talk about Winston Wright, Mike Norvell. I mean, we didn't get a timeline. We would love a timeline. Although we do know they're going to report for camp Tuesday, and then we're thinking they're going to practice Wednesday.
Yeah, they're practicing Wednesday. He said they'll be on the field Wednesday.
Yeah, so we'll see maybe if he's out there. But, Tom, what did he say? He's advanced in his rehab.
Yeah,
and, that's encouraging.
And a special mindset in the rehab, so clearly that means that, Winston's doing everything he possibly can. And that's another player. That's the line, I think. Mike was asked about transfers and having a high hit rate, too, in the local breakout session. But everybody's got something to prove. Even Fabian Levitt touched on that in the local session. That was the one that I recorded. And he was asked something akin to, what's the difference? And he said, transfer portal. He said, it's just
Who said that?
Fabian. He's the transfer portal. And that tells you, what was here on campus and what they flipped to. I think it's a combination now of transfer portal and their evaluations on the high school kids they brought in. But they all, if you think about it, the transfer portal by nature, you have something to prove at your next institution. So I think that's probably the motivation behind Winston Wright's rehab process, where he is taking, to
He wants to get
real
paid
heights.
too, right? He's in the whole same boat where he wants to go to the league and get paid.
Well, I mean, and you see him on social media too. I mean, Winston's not
here,
shying down about all those things, or and that's no timetable. Mike didn't even hint at September, first half of the season, nothing like that. But I mean, again, I don't think he'd be excited and talking about it as openly with an advanced time frame if Winston wasn't projecting to be playing fairly early in the season. I'm not going to pin it down and say LSU or anything like that, but it sounds like fairly early that kid's going to be back in the rotation.
I think the other cool thing, and I'll probably write about it at some point, was just listen to Jamie talk and Fabian talk and thinking about the pieces they've got coming back. They did have several guys that could have gone, and in players that were not as good as Coop's definitely one of them. Amari Gaynor probably is a guy that was thinking about it. That in certain years, those guys might have gone just because they were miserable here. Some of those guys that went pro, in the years before that, it's just like, man, I'm getting out of here. And, think about what this defense, the questions we'd be asking about this defense if those guys had all gone or if just two or three of them had gone. But they all came back. And and it was funny. I was asking Jamie Robinson about it, and Fabian was at the next table, and he just started laughing because Fabian was like calling him all the time, man, you're not going to go, are you? Because Fabian and Cooper, I think, had decided, but Jamie was holding out, and not literally holding out like an NFL player, but just
maybe NIL holdout though. Who knows?
Still trying to make his decision. And he said Fabian kept calling him like, hey man. So that's an investment. Where a bunch of guys are saying, no, we're coming back, and again, they're not the those Clemson guys that came back that year on their defensive line. They're not at that level, but these are good college football players who decided to come back and for a purpose, and it's for themselves. They obviously want to improve their draft stock, but it's also for turning around the program. And I think that's just it's a very positive thing that we probably don't talk a lot because we're so focused on the new transfers and all that. But that was a key to whatever they can do this season.
Also, obscure shout out to Jarrell Powers.
Yeah.
Who, he was identified by Norvell. I mean, Norvell's earlier, I was talking about, he was giving us like specific reasons why he feels confident about the direction of the team. He mentioned the guys they're bringing in, talking about Jarrell Powers. You guys will see the way that he runs and the way he changes direction at 240 pounds, and Brian Courtney, a guy too. So not the full exhaustive list. Go watch the video. It's like 40 minutes of it, everybody. Maybe we'll put some timestamps in there.
There's multiple videos.
Yeah. Usually when we do videos, you're like, one more thing. But it's a podcast. Is there one more thing that we should touch on or anything that we left out, you think, Ira?
I usually do, but I feel like we were pretty thorough this time.
Like 45.
This was a thorough day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want more, there's more at warchant.com. We might even be able to twist Ira's arm and writing a column for you folks, but he's busy. He's got a lot to do. So don't do that. I know you feel like obligated to do it, but you've done plenty today, Ira.
I got to hopefully by the time this is up, we'll have the story up about we've got several stories up on the site right now. We've got a story on Jordan Travis and his confidence and all that, and it's a good read. We also have a story that Austin helped us with on just Mike Norvell and the confidence and all of that. Got all these videos that we put up, and then I'll have a story also about, you alluded to it earlier, just the LSU talk has already started. They hear it, and it was pretty funny. At one point, Jamie Robinson tried to pronounce Duquesne, and he had no idea what Duquesne was, but he knows. They said they know they got to take care of business with them first, but they're already focused on LSU, and they know how big that. And Norvell even talked about it. I was kind of surprised. He actually said, I thought he would go with the that's not the next game we're playing, but he said, no, this is exactly why kids come to Florida State. This is an opportunity to get back on the big stage, and we're excited about it.
Also, NCAA related stuff. I guess they're going to do 2 windows for transfers, December 5th to January 18th, a 45-day window, and then like May 1st to 15th, like a 15-day window, like after spring or whatever. So some rules as everything else around us burns down in our non-gated neighborhood because they've got the good fire departments. They've got the good public services. So thanks to Ira and thanks to Tom for joining me. Again, we'll probably have maybe Corey will be on the show tomorrow on a Friday for you folks if he's feeling a little bit better. He's working though. He's mending this. That's really great. Go to the YouTube page. Again, there's just interviews galore, all sorts of different platforms of these guys speaking from. So do check it out. And then Jeff Cameron Show 1 to 3 o'clock. Everything at warchant.com. Download the app. Thumbs up. 5-star rating review. Ira.
And even though my last thing, this is my real last thing.
Here he goes.
And even though ACC Kickoff is going to end today and we'll be on the road heading back, some of this stuff we're going to be saving and rolling
But not all
out.
that much. The great thing is you don't have to wait all that long, right? Because
Right.
there's practice in less than a week.
True. But stay connected over the weekend to the website and also to the YouTube page because we're going to have a lot of content still rolling out. Some of the interviews we got that we haven't posted yet, we'll be posting over the weekend.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.